Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good to see you. I rise in opposition to the legislation before us at the moment, the proposed legislation. I've been listening to the dialogue all afternoon or since we started this a couple of hours ago. And I guess maybe I'll repeat some of what's already been said, but my understanding from having belonged to worked for employers where I had to be part of a union, for being on the management side of employers where we had unionized employees, is that employees who are in a bargaining unit are in contracts with their employer that describe their relationship with the employer. Wages, benefits, access to services, disciplinary actions, other policies, including the payment of benefits for striking employments. So I don't think there's any argument that contracts, collective bargaining agreements define within the collective bargaining unit the conditions under which an employee is working. And conditions not meaning the working conditions, but the rules by which they're held between the employer and the employee. And they're negotiated, hopefully in good faith, between the employer and the employee. These agreements even go on to define when someone can strike, when they can say, I don't agree with this. And there are provisions in there that define what a strike would look like, and the Labor Act defines what a dispute is. I think there was a question earlier. Section 561 of the Connecticut statutes of the Labor Relations Act very clearly defines what a labor dispute is. So if I'm understanding this and I'm following along correctly, going on a strike or deciding to not work, particularly in a collective bargaining unit situation, is a decision that is made by the members of that bargaining unit, not by the employer. So the members of the bargaining unit get together and they agree to go on strike.
Thank you, Senator Berthel. Senator Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry that I wasn't quite sure what the question was. Could you repeat the question?
I wasn't asking a question. I'm just making a statement. I didn't.
I'm sorry. It looked
no,
like
that's all right. No, I'm sorry. I paused for a moment just to. I do want to make sure I'm explaining this clearly in my own head. My apologies, Senator. I had not framed a question. Thank you, Mr. President, for the consideration. And I don't know that I'm going to have a question, Senator, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around what we're doing here. So. Again, going on strike, a decision made by the collective bargaining unit, not by the employer. And employees in the collective bargaining unit make the conscious and deliberative decision to walk off the job. That's part of what is in the details of the contract that they negotiate with their employer. Maybe it's a disagreement over the negotiations. It's a disagreement over the benefits. It's a disagreement over wages, working conditions. Whatever it is, it's part of what is guaranteed when you have a collective bargaining unit. But I think it's important that the distinction is made here, that the decision is made by the employee, not the employer, to go on strike. Again, whatever the conditions are, the collective bargaining unit takes up a vote to say, we are going to walk off the job. We're going to stop working. And because of that, when I look at the unemployment statutes for the state of Connecticut, people who do that, employees who do that, are not eligible for unemployment by definition. And then let's just take this to the other piece that the proposed legislation goes to. You don't have to be in a bargaining unit to walk off a job. If Senator Martin and I are working and we decide and we're not in a collective bargaining unit, we decide we're going to stop working because we don't like that something that's going on, we can walk off the job. We don't have to be in a union to do that. But if we are working for an employer, let's say, that has shut down, and we saw a lot of that during the last 24 months with this terrible pandemic that we were living through and the whole world went through. We saw businesses that closed. We saw businesses that were forced to close. Not a single person in that situation was denied an unemployment benefit. As a matter of fact, we went to extraordinary measures to make sure that we took extra care of people who were displaced because their businesses were closed. This body took up that initiative and made sure that we took care of people who were displaced because their employer was shut down, whether they were shut down because of an executive order or they were shut down because the economy just wasn't allowing them to stay open, or maybe a combination of both. Someone who is walking off of a job, who is able and willing to work and covered by a contract, should not be eligible for unemployment. The decision to not work is that of that employee. So allowing them to collect unemployment it's illogical, and it seems fundamentally wrong. Allowing striking workers to collect unemployment benefits does not align with the original purpose of the Unemployment Insurance Trust Act and unemployment benefits. It does not align with that purpose. Striking workers choose to leave the workforce, and because they are striking, they are not readily available to work. That is one of the tenets of being able to collect unemployment. You have to be ready to go back to work. And they're not, because they're on strike. That's not being ready to work. Being readily available and able to work is a requirement of collecting unemployment benefits. The Department of Labor Commissioner Bartolomeo testified against this bill, and she stated that the changes in this bill may affect the solvency of the Unemployment Trust Fund, and there's been some comments that have already been made about this. The Connecticut Business Industry Association, Connecticut's largest business organization, testified against this bill. They stated that the state unemployment system and trust fund are important social safety nets that have proven critical in recent years, particularly in the last 2 years, as I already spoke to. The system is funded exclusively by employers for the purpose of ensuring workers that become unemployed through no act of their own have a safety net. Striking workers are not working because they chose not to work. They chose not to work. It is not a fault of their own. Unemployed workers eligible for unemployment must be available for work. Striking workers are not available to work. Unemployed workers must be actively seeking another job while receiving benefits. Striking workers are not without a job. They're on strike from their current job. And if you look at the statistics, the Unemployment Insurance Fund is currently indebted with loans to the value of $555 million, plus more than $350 million in interest and credit reductions. And in November of this year, business taxes will increase on employers until this debt is satisfied. This is not the first time we've had this problem in Connecticut. When we combine this scenario with the next increase in the minimum wage, the increased cost of health insurance, the increased cost of energy, the highway taxes that are coming on the delivery of everything in the state of Connecticut, and this unprecedented inflation that we're seeing in the last 12, 16 months in general, this will result, policy like this will result in yet another increase in prices, the cost of living, and the difficulty of the middle class to stay in Connecticut. When does it stop? When does this assault on the middle class stop? When will we recognize that these policies are destroying our economy and further toxifying the business climate in Connecticut. I would argue that we are in a precarious time for our economy. We are awash in ARPA funds from Washington that we are collectively figuring out how to use and spend to presumably restart our economy and to help those who need our help. The longer-term reality is that in the next 18 to 24 months, we will likely see budget deficits and debate those deficits, those of us that are still here in the circle, that will be somewhere in the neighborhood of, $3, $4, $5 billion. Something we've never seen before. Policy like this amplifies this economic disaster we are facing. Again, increasing costs and eliminating jobs, good jobs that people might seek to get employed in. Mr. President, the Unemployment Trust Fund should be preserved for qualified individuals in need, particularly given its current lack of solvency. Mr. President, I am strongly opposed to this legislation, and I urge rejection. Thank you.